For today, we are going to talk about Tropical Depression 19, which just formed earlier this morning as of the 4 a.m. update. We also are going to talk about the updated drought monitor that came out this morning. Those come out every Thursday, including those wildfires that are really all over the U.S. right now. And also back to the rain, wind, and tidal flooding for the Hampton Roads area. So first up is the tropics. Tropical Depression 19 formed earlier this morning. Yesterday, you may recall, we had potential Tropical Cyclone 19. But since then, we have now gotten a tropical depression, and it's not uncommon to see these storms forming in November. But the further you get into the month of November, the activity really starts to ramp down. And we've already seen a major hurricane this month, Rafael, which made landfall in Cuba as a Category 3. And a lot of the activity really ramps up towards the beginning of September during the peak of the season. And as we go through October into November, it really starts to quiet down. But this November, that really has not been the case. As we take a look at the breeding grounds for tropical cyclones during the month of November, there's a few areas we tend to pay closer attention to. We have the Gulf of Mexico, where a few of those could develop. We also have areas in the Central Caribbean, the Southern Caribbean as well, and areas along closer to the Bahamas and south of Bermuda, just to the north of Hispaniola as well. And wouldn't you know it, this is exactly where we have Tropical Depression 19, right where you would expect a storm to form in the middle towards the end of November. So you'll see it churning out here right now, just to the north of Honduras, just to the east of the Yucatan Peninsula. And as you zoom in, you can see these thunderstorms really starting to wrap around the center over the last couple of hours, which is a good sign that it is starting to strengthen within the last couple of hours. So here is the latest on it right now. Tropical Depression 19, winds at about 35 miles per hour as of the 10 a.m. update, gusting to about 45 miles per hour. And here is the latest track from the National Hurricane Center. You'll see that it is really on the cusp of Honduras, and as it gets towards Guatemala into the Yucatan Peninsula, it looks like it's going to strengthen into a tropical storm as we get later into the day tomorrow, later in the day today into early tomorrow morning. So the next name on the list would be Sara. So we could have Tropical Storm Sara later on today into early tomorrow morning. But you'll see the cone kind of takes this into land for half the cone, and then the other half of the cone is over open water. So there's really two scenarios that could be happening with this storm. The first scenario would be that this storm takes a more southerly route, which means that there would be much more land interaction for this storm, which would not give it the environment it needs to continue strengthening. And if you compare that to what we saw yesterday, the storm looked like it was going to stay well north to Guatemala. It still was going to go over the Yucatan Peninsula, but stay pretty strong, emerge back out over the Gulf of Mexico, and make its way over towards Florida. But today, the models have been trending a little bit further more to the south and have been trending much weaker for the system. So that's great news for areas along the Gulf Coast, but not so great news for areas towards Central America, including Honduras, Guatemala, and the Yucatan Peninsula, because if it stays further to the south, it's going to bring an enormous amount of rain to these areas, and they are very prone to mudslides because these areas are very mountainous. So if it stays over land, it'll stay weak and it'll kind of fizzle out over the next couple of days. You'll see that the National Hurricane Center still has this as a tropical depression as we get into Monday and even into Tuesday of the upcoming work week. That's because it has the chance to stay over land for a very long period of time, which would not give it the environment it needs to continue strengthen. But if it stays towards the northern side of the cone, it'll stay over water much longer, and there's a lot of warm water in this area, so that would give it the environment it needs to continue strengthening because there's also not a lot of wind shear in the area as well. but it'll still interact with the Yucatan Peninsula, which would weaken it. But if it's a stronger system and makes its way through the Yucatan and emerges back off over into the Gulf, then it has the chance to continue to strengthen as it emerges back into the Gulf and make its way over to Florida. But for now, the models have been trending better for Florida, better news for Florida. So if you have any trips planned for next week, things are looking a little bit better for areas in the Gulf. But for right now, we have tropical storm watches and warnings up for the area. A lot of the beach line of Honduras has tropical storm warnings in effect right now. And just to the south, there is a tropical storm watch. But other than that, no hurricane warnings up. So that's some good news. So we're not expecting this to strengthen into a hurricane just yet, like we were seeing yesterday when the National Hurricane Center or the models were saying that this really could be a hurricane by tomorrow or into the weekend, but now not looking as likely. So that's what we like to see. But here are the sea surface temperatures in the Caribbean right now. Lower to mid 80s, plenty of warm water for these storms to continue to form and strengthen over the next couple of days. As you get into the Gulf of Mexico, still pretty warm water, lower 80s, but more to the north of the Gulf, you have upper 70s, mid to lower 70s, and that's not really warm enough for these storms to strengthen. You really need temperatures of the water to be 80 degrees or higher. Once it gets below 80 degrees, they can't really use that energy to strengthen. So they normally would weaken once they enter waters or cooler waters like this. So if the storm, say, was to end up going more towards the northern Gulf, if that was the case, it's just a very big what if, then that's not great news for areas like Mississippi or Alabama. But the good news is these waters have cooled down over the last month, couple of weeks, to where it would start to weaken as it makes its way up towards the north. But here's also a thing to look at, the wind shear. You'll notice there's really not a lot in the Caribbean right now. There's more up towards the northern Gulf of Mexico, a lot over towards South Carolina, over towards the Bahamas. But here, where Tropical Depression 19 is forming and has formed, there's really not much. So when you have the warmer waters, the lesser wind shear creates a very favorable environment for these storms to form. But the thing that is keeping this storm from really strengthening into what it could be is the land interaction. It is moving very close again to Central America, which is what's going to help hinder this from continuing to strengthen to what it could been. So that is some good news right there. Here is the GFS model. We'll see it continuing to strengthen a little bit more heading into later today. As we get into about Friday afternoon, we could see still a tropical storm making its way into the area, but you'll see over into Saturday afternoon as well, it's still in the same area as it was today and Friday. So it's not moving much over the next couple of days. And if half of the low pressure system or the center of the low pressure system is over land for that long, it's really going to weaken it significantly and not allow it to strengthen even further. And then you'll see as we get into Monday, that low pressure system kind of disappears and doesn't really reemerge into the Gulf of Mexico compared to what the GFS model was saying yesterday when you had a pretty major storm, whether it was a strong tropical storm or a low-end hurricane, was making its way all the way into the Gulf of Mexico over towards Florida. But we'll notice back at the model comparison, you saw those reds and yellows kind of light up here a little bit. Those were the American and the European models, and they are in both pretty good agreement that this thing could fizzle out over areas of Guatemala and not really make its way back into the Gulf of Mexico. So really big differences from yesterday to today. But again, that's the thing, is that you have to follow the trends and not one model is going to be correct. So within the next 12 to 24 hours, could we see a shift back to what it was yesterday? Certainly could. But over the next 12 to 24 hours, I would say, is crucial to what's really going to happen with the storm. Because again, if it stays to the north of Guatemala or to the north of Honduras, then I have the warm waters to stay stronger once it goes through the Yucatan. But if it stays over Central America, then again, it'll kind of fizzle out. So that would be some great news for areas of Florida, because yesterday, I know a lot of people in that area, a lot of people in the Tampa area, and everyone seemed pretty concerned. A lot of the meteorologists were pretty concerned. But again, like we say, a lot of these can change overnight, which is exactly what happened, and they trended in a better direction for this area. But if we were to see another hurricane hit the United States in November, it would only be the 5th one ever since we have been keeping records since 1851. We've only seen 4. Now, we had Hurricane Nicole just 2 years ago in 2022, which made landfall as a Category 1. We had Hurricane Kate way back in 1985, Hurricane Yankee back in 1935, and Expedition all the way back in 1861. So it does not happen very often. And we had the chance earlier this month for Rafael to make landfall. Luckily, it didn't. It kind of fizzled out in the Gulf of Mexico. Now we have this chance here with what most likely will be Sara as we head into the next couple of days. But again, you normally see the activity ramp down in November, but the last couple of weeks, it has been pretty active. We'll continue to keep you updated with the tropics as we go throughout the day today and into tomorrow, but also want to take a turn onto the next topic. We have wildfires and droughts throughout the U.S. Now, here is the drought monitor from September 1st. And you'll notice a lot of the eastern seaboard not in a drought. Things are looking good. I mean, a good portion of the U.S. is abnormally dry or seeing drier conditions, but there's not a ton of extreme to exceptional droughts over the area. But you'll remember throughout this fall, it has been some of the driest starts to fall a lot of areas have ever seen, especially into portions of the Northeast. I believe New York City saw its driest fall ever. And so as we've gone throughout the last couple of months, you'll notice the progression of the drought taking over the United States. I mean, compared to September 1st, and now we're more into October and early November, a lot of the U.S. is now under a drought, and especially in areas over towards the Northeast. This is the most updated one. A lot of severe to exceptional droughts in the Northeast, all the way down towards the eastern seaboard, up towards the Dakotas, Montana, and down towards Texas into Arizona, Nevada. A lot of the U.S. has been under either abnormally dry or under some sort of drought for the last couple of weeks or even months. So a lot has to change within the next couple of weeks. Hopefully there's a pattern change, or just a lot of these areas need to see a good amount of rainfall to really wipe out this drought, because over the last couple of months, especially the eastern seaboard, has not been seeing any of this rain. So over 80% of the U.S. is abnormally dry or seeing some sort of drought. About 52% of the lower 48 states are in a drought. So let's go over what these drought levels really mean. You have dry, moderate, severe, extreme, and exceptional. And these come from the National Drought Mitigation Center, NOAA, and the Department of Agriculture. And when you have a moderate drought, which a good portion of the United States has, wildfire danger is higher than normal. Then you go up to severe. Voluntary and mandatory water restrictions are introduced. And then you can get up to extreme droughts, where outdoor burn bans are issued, where you're seeing a lot of severe to extreme droughts in areas of the Northeast, especially in New Jersey, where they are seeing a few wildfires out there right now. And then you have exceptional drought, which reservoirs are low and daily life is impacted for everybody. So again, if a lot of these areas continue to go out with seeing rain, they could get up to some of these extreme levels if something doesn't change. Here are the wildfires throughout the United States right now. I mean, you have a lot in the south over Texas, towards the west coast, of course, down in Florida. But you'll notice there's also a few in New Jersey. You guys have 3 wildfires out there right now, and even one exceptionally close to Manhattan. And over the last couple of days, luckily now, the smoke is more off towards the north and the west. But the last few days, a lot of the smoke from these wildfires have been getting into Manhattan and just funneling straight into the city, nowhere else, just in New York City. But there was such bad air quality just in Manhattan over the last couple of days because the air or the wind was pushing all of the smoke from these wildfires straight into the city. Luckily, that has changed a little bit today. But again, remember last year in, I believe, July, or maybe it was September or October, the pictures from New York City of the wildfires, the orange skies, it was insane to see. And this is, again, happening this year with the wildfires in New Jersey. But not only in the Northeast, you're seeing a ton in Texas, in Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Tennessee, Arkansas, a lot, Missouri, a lot of these areas are seeing these wildfires, and it's impacting daily life. Areas towards Houston are getting in on a lot of the smoke. Over towards Alabama, Atlanta, smoke is just kind of inundating a few of these areas. And over towards the West Coast, you have a few in California, Oregon, over towards Idaho, Colorado, Utah. A lot of these states are seeing these wildfires, so which is kind of wild. You also have a lot over in Florida as well. But luckily, we're seeing a system that's moving across the United States right now, which could help with a few of these systems. Now, here it is right now. You have this low pressure system kind of over Chicago right now. You have an occluded front and a few other fronts that are pushing their way towards the East Coast right now. And you'll see that they're pushing their way over towards Norfolk, D.C., Raleigh. But here's the thing, here's not a good thing for the Northeast. There's a lot of dry air up here. And as this continues to push in the Northeast direction, a lot of the rain up towards the north is going to fizzle out as it makes its way into that area. So that's not great news for them because they certainly need it. But for areas in drought down towards the mid-Atlantic, we're going to see this rain. It's going to stay intact down here. We're going to see another low pressure system kind of forming off the coast of the Carolinas, which is going to help create even more rain. You'll see that over here, this area really kind of exploding off the coast of the Carolinas, which is also going to bring a lot of windy conditions to the area, especially towards the Outer Banks. But again, as we go throughout the next couple of days into the weekend, we kind of dry out here over the eastern seaboard, but you'll see more showers over in the north. And then as we get towards the start of next week, we'll see another storm system making its way into the Midwest, which is fantastic news for them. Because remember, you're seeing all those wildfires and those brush fires in parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana. So good news is next week we could see another system moving into that area and really kind of helping and pushing through a good portion of the U.S. But here's the thing. Once we get past next week and look forward to the next 2 weeks, so 8 to the next 14 days, it's looking a little bit drier than normal for a lot of the areas in the south, which is still experiencing those droughts and wildfires. More up towards the north and even into the northeast, looking like it could be a little bit wetter than normal. So something to look forward to again, but really the entire U.S. should be wanting to see wetter than normal conditions. But unfortunately, that's just not going to be the case as we go throughout the next couple of days.